10th Malaysia-Singapore Leaders Retreat kicks off today. Israel commits crime under International Criminal Court's jurisdiction. Good afternoon. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim arrived in Singapore last night ahead of his two-day working visit in conjunction with the 10th Malaysia-Singapore Leaders Retreat that begins today. The aircraft with the Prime Minister on board landed at the VIP complex of Changi International Airport at 10 p.m. The Prime Minister was received upon his arrival by Singapore's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Dr. Vivian Balakrishnan, along with Malaysian Foreign Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Zamri Abdul Kadir. Datuk Sri Anwar has been to Singapore twice previously after becoming Malaysia's Prime Minister. His first official visit in January and then participating in two special sessions at the Milken Institute's 10th Annual Asia Summit in September. According to Wisma Putra, Datuk Sri Anwar and his Singapore counterpart Lee Hsien Loong will deliberate on measures to further advance relations and cooperation. This includes new initiatives relating to smooth connectivity, cross-border movements, as well as collaboration on green energy during his visit, which will also be the first meeting between the two leaders in the framework of the retreat. Datuk Sri Anwar is also scheduled to pay a courtesy call on Singapore President Tharman Shanmugaratnam. The Malaysia-Singapore Leaders Retreat is the highest-level bilateral mechanism between the two countries, hosted alternately since 2007. The Leaders Retreat has been postponed since 2019 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Recep Tayyip Erdogan vowed on Sunday to stand up to imperialist forces as he led Turkish centenary celebrations in the shadow of Israel's escalating war with Hamas in Gaza. The Turkish president took center stage during day-long events that both honored the Republic's secular founder and played up the achievement of his Islamic-rooted party that has run Turkey since 2002.
Cumhuriyeti kurmuştur. Cumhuriyetin kuruluş gayesi bizzat banisinin ifadesiyle kimsesizlerin kimsesi olmaktır. Cumhuriyet bu vasfını tam manasıyla bizim dönemimizde kazanmıştır. Bugün Türkiye Cumhuriyeti tıpkı Gazi'nin arzu ettiği biçimde bölgesinde ve dünyada kimsesizlerin kimsesi olan bir ülkedir.
Cumhurbaşkanımız
Erdogan said this after laying a wreath at the mausoleum of military commander and statesman Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Erdogan ended the day by overseeing 100 Navy ships pass through the Bosphorus while screaming fighter jets performed aerobatics overhead. Sunday's celebrations have been partially eclipsed by Erdogan's increasingly fierce attacks against Israel. Turkish state television has also scrapped the broadcast of concerts and other festivities because of the alarming human tragedy in Gaza. Erdogan also announced that 1.5 million people had come out for a pro-Palestinian rally in Istanbul on Saturday that ended up drowning out national television coverage of the centenary. Hamas yesterday said its fighters in South Lebanon had launched rockets towards Israel in a fresh escalation along the border. Meanwhile, another group announced that they launched a rocket at Israel's north, while powerful Iran-backed movement Hezbollah, a Hamas ally, said it had shot down an Israel drone over Israeli territory using a surface-to-air missile. Cross-border exchanges have become an almost daily occurrence since 7th October. Israel has responded with an unrelenting bombardment of Gaza, which has killed more than 8,000 people, also almost civilians. Lebanon's official national news agency, NNA, reported that the Israeli Air Force carried out several raids on South Lebanon towns. Hamas' armed wing, the Azzedine al-Qassam Brigade, said in a statement its fighters in Lebanon had launched 16 18 rockets at Nahariya, a coastal town in Israel's Galilee region, in response to the crimes of the occupation against the people of Gaza. The armed branch of Jama'ah Islamiyah group also said it had fired targeted rockets at the Israeli border town of Kiryat Shomna. Shiite group Hezbollah said it had targeted multiple Israeli army positions, also announcing the death of one of its fighters on Sunday. Since 7th October, cross-border violence has killed at least 59 people in Lebanon. Most were Hezbollah fighters, although there have been 4 civilians among the victims, including one journalist. Nearly 29,000 people have been displaced in Lebanon due to the clashes. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society on Sunday said the Israeli military was repeatedly bombing around its hospital in central Gaza, causing damage and putting civilians at risk. According with the aim of forcing medical staff, displaced individuals and patients to evacuate the hospital. It added that the bombings have caused significant damage to hospital departments and exposed residents and patients to suffocation. In addition to patients, the Red Crescent said 14,000 people displaced by the war are sheltering at the hospital. Hospital Director Bashar Murad said that the team was called twice on Sunday, ordering them to evacuate the facility as it will be bombed. The head of the World Health Organization said reports of threats to evacuate Al-Quds Hospital were deeply concerning. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said it's impossible to evacuate hospitals full of patients without endangering their lives, wrote on X. Hamas has issued an appeal to the United Nations and the international community to take immediate action to stop the threat by the occupation Israel to target Al-Quds Hospital. The health ministry in Hamas-ruled Gaza has reported 57 attacks on medical facilities since the war erupted on 7th October. The ministry said in a statement, a dozen hospitals in Gaza are no longer functioning and 116 health workers have been killed. In a related development, International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan says impeding relief supplies to Gaza's population may constitute a crime under the International Criminal Court's ICC jurisdiction. Karim Khan also said Israel must make discernible efforts without further delay to make sure civilians in Gaza receive basic food and medicine. Israeli officials have said that food, water and medicines have been coming in through the Egyptian border and that it expected the quantities to rise. United Nations officials have said the aid supplies are limited and do not correspond to the huge need on the ground. Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi said Sunday that Israel's ongoing bombardment of Gaza may force everyone to act in the latest warning that the conflict could spread across the region. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and French President Emmanuel Macron spoke by telephone and expressed their shared concern at the risk of escalation in the wider region. Norway's Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store called the situation in Gaza catastrophic. However, its response has been disproportionate. Thousands of Gaza residents broke into warehouses and distribution centers of the United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA, grabbing flour and basic survival items. This happened after aid supplies to Gaza had been choked since Israel began bombarding the densely populated Palestinian enclave.
Bombardments continue. They have lost so much.
UNRWA has said that its ability to help people in Gaza has been completely stretched by airstrikes that have killed more than 50 of its staff and restricted the movement of supplies. Even before the conflict, the organization had said its mandate was being jeopardized due to a lack of funding. Established in 1949 following the first Arab-Israeli war, UNRWA provides public services including schools, primary health care and humanitarian aid in Gaza, the West Bank, Jordan, Syria and Lebanon. UNRWA's Director of Communications, Juliette Thoma, said the scenes at the warehouses and distribution centres showed people's despair. Thoma said the agency had been forced to reduce the scale of its humanitarian operation in the densely populated enclave because it could not distribute fuel to some medical facilities and they had not received any additional supplies on Sunday. Hundreds of Canadian protesters took to the streets of Toronto on Sunday to demand a ceasefire in Gaza as the conflict between Israel and Hamas continues to escalate. Protesters gathered outside the U.S. Consulate General for the rally, which was organized by the Palestinian Youth Movement in Toronto. Members of the group also called for an end to both U.S. and Canadian funding and support of Israel's genocide. Members of the Independent Jewish Voices joined the protests and criticized what they said was a genocide being done in their name. International outcry has been mounting over the past days with large-scale demonstrations in cities like London and New York, calling for a humanitarian pause to allow aid inside Gaza. In Madrid, thousands took the street in solidarity with Palestinian people and against Israel's military actions in Gaza. Protesters marched towards Sol Square chanting, "It's not war, it's genocide," and demanding a ceasefire. Some Madrid residents said that what is happening to the Palestinian people was shameful and asked for more mobilization worldwide to denounce it. Over in Sydney, thousands of protesters called for an end to the violence in Gaza. They marched through the city of chants of Free Palestine while carrying signs and bloodied dolls. Israel has signaled its intent to encircle Gaza's main city on Sunday, publishing pictures of battle tanks on the Palestinian enclave's western coast 48 hours after ordering expanded ground incursions across its eastern border. Israel's self-declared second phase of a three-week war against Hamas had initially been kept from public view, with forces moving under darkness and a telecommunications blackout cutting off Palestinians. Bomb blast kills at least 2 in India. That and more coming up right after this. The death toll of a suspected bomb blast during a Christian prayer meeting in India's southern state of Kerala raised to 2, wounding more than 35 others. According to police, more than 2,000 people were attending a 3-day Jehovah's Witnesses meeting at a convention centre in Kalamesari near the port city of Kochi when the blast ripped through the crowd. Director General of Police of Kerala, Darvish Sahib, said the explosion happened in Zamra International Convention Centre at about 4:10 GMT. Local Assistant Police Commissioner P.V. Baby, speaking to AFP, said one woman died in the initial explosion and a second woman later died of her wounds. A man handed himself in to the police after releasing a video message on social media and aired on television channels, in which he claimed to be a former member of the church who now disagreed with its beliefs. Police said they are examining his claims and the reasons given for carrying out the act. The Press Trust of India PTI news agency reported at least 3 blasts had occurred inside the convention centre. The blast comes against a backdrop of intercommunal tensions within the prosperous southern state of more than 31 million people, 26% of whom are Muslims. Meanwhile, over in the southeast region of India, at least 10 people were killed and around 20 injured after 2 trains collided. The crash caused a derailment between the towns of Alamanda and Katakapalli in Andhra Pradesh state. According to officials, the accident occurred after one of the passengers' trains overshot a signal. At least 10 killed, while a senior railway official confirmed that 18 to 20 people were injured. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrote on X that he had spoken with the country's railway ministry and that he extends condolences to the bereaved families and prays that the injured recover soon. India has one of the world's largest rail networks and has seen several disasters over the years. The worst in 1989 when a train derailed while crossing a bridge in Bihar state and plunged into a river below, killing an estimated 800 people. In June, a triple train collision killed nearly 300 people in Odisha state. In August, at least 9 people were killed when a coach parked in southern India caught fire as a passenger tried to make tea. More than 120 soldiers backed by police were combing northern Colombia Sunday for the father of Liverpool winger Luis Diaz, kidnapped with his wife, who has since been rescued. The army said in a statement it had set up roadblocks and deployed 2 motorized platoons, unmanned aircraft, helicopters and a plane with radar in the search for Luis Manuel Diaz. Colombian authorities did not provide details about the kidnapping, but media reported that the footballer's father and mother, Chilenese Marulanda, were taken on Saturday by armed men on motorcycles at a gas station in their hometown of Barrancas in the northern La Guajira department. President Gustavo Petro said Marulanda was rescued in Barrancas on the same day the couple was taken. Colombia is a country just emerging from decades of civil conflict between rival armed groups that has seen more than 38,000 people kidnapped over the years, mostly for ransom. Petro, at an event to mark the opening of local elections in Bogota, said all the public forces have been deployed to find Diaz's father. Luis Manuel Diaz was an amateur coach at the only football school in Barrancas, a town of about 38,000 inhabitants, where his son showed promise from a very young age. Next in sports, unstoppable Verstappen claims 16th win of the season. Stay tuned. Kicking off our sports segment today, Erling Haaland struck his first 2 goals at Old Trafford as Manchester City humiliated Manchester United in front of their home crowd. Meanwhile, Liverpool secured a comfortable win over Nottingham Forest at Anfield and lifted Jurgen Klopp's team to 23 points, 3 behind leaders Tottenham Hotspur. Let's take a look at some of the results of match day 10 of the English Premier League. Haaland netted a brace for himself through a spot kick awarded to City in the 16th minute and scored another just after the half-time break. Phil Foden added the third from close range in the ATF to complete the thrashing. Pep Guardiola's treble winners are third in the standings on 24 points after 10 games, 2 points behind leaders Tottenham Hotspur. Diogo Jota, Darwin Núñez and Mohamed Salah each scored a goal against Nottingham Forest and lifted Liverpool to number 4 in standings. The defeat leaves Forest in 16th place in the table on 10 points, 5 points above the drop zone. Brighton and Hove Albion's search for a return to winning ways in the Premier League continues after they were held to a 1-1 draw by Fulham. Brighton remain in 7th place, level on 17 points with Newcastle United, and Fulham stay in 14th with 12 points. Everton's Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored his 50th Premier League goal to give his side a 1-0 away win at West Ham United on Sunday and open some daylight between the Merseyside club and the relegation zone. Everton move up to 15th in the table with 10 points from 10 games, 5 points clear of the drop zone, while West Ham, who have now lost 3 games in a row in all competitions, are in 9th with 14 points. And in motorsports, Formula One world champion Max Verstappen drew level with Alain Prost on 51 Formula One victories early this morning when he claimed his record 16th triumph of the season at the Mexican Grand Prix. Starting from third on the grid, the Red Bull driver stole the lead at the start and then dominated the race, which was punctuated by a lengthy red flag stoppage when Kevin Magnussen crashed heavily in his Haas. The 26-year-old Dutchman came home 13.875 seconds ahead of a revitalized Lewis Hamilton, who started sixth, with pole sitter Charles Leclerc taking third place ahead of his Ferrari teammate Carlos Sainz. Lando Norris finished a glorious fifth for McLaren after an enthralling drive through the field from 17th on the grid ahead of George Russell in the second Mercedes. It was Verstappen's fifth win in Mexico and his record equaling 18th podium finish this year, while the luckless Leclerc, who collided with Sergio Perez's Red Bull at the first corner, endured his 11th successive failure to convert pole into a victory. Perez spun off, recovered and retired, much to the disappointment of his home Mexican fans and a big crowd at the high-altitude Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Daniel Ricciardo finished a creditable seventh for AlphaTauri ahead of Oscar Piastri in the second McLaren, Williams' Alex Albon and Esteban Ocon of Alpine. Pramac Racing's Jorge Martin made it a perfect weekend at the Thailand Grand Prix when the pole sitter and sprint winner won a thrilling race yesterday, cutting the gap to championship leader Italy's Francesco Bagnaia to 13 points. Martin finished ahead of KTM's Brad Binder of South Africa and Ducati's Bagnaia after an intense battle for the top three spots, but Binder was demoted a position for exceeding track limits, meaning he finished third behind Bagnaia. Martin set a lap record when he secured pole on Saturday and led from start to finish, claiming his fifth straight sprint victory of the season. The Spaniard led for majority of the race before conceding the lead with 2 laps to go, but on the penultimate lap, Martin saw a gap to make a daring overtake on the inside, and Binder had no choice but to concede the lead as the Spaniard held on to take the checkered flag. In Moto2 action, Fermin Aldeguer of Spain finished first ahead of championship leader compatriot Pedro Acosta, who only needs a maximum of 12 points from the remaining 3 races to win the title. In Moto3, David Alonso of Colombia won the 4th Grand Prix of his career. Championship leader Spain's Jaume Masia finished 4th and holds a 17-point lead. In World Rally Championship, Kalle Pera of Finland remained on course to retain his World Rally crown with just 2 stages remaining of the Central European Rally in Germany on Sunday. After completing 2 morning stages, the Toyota driver remained in second place, 37.8 seconds behind overnight leader Hyundai driver Thierry Neuville of Belgium. The Finn only needs to finish in the points to ensure he remains world champion, with 1 round in Japan to come next month after his only rival for the crown, teammate Elfyn Evans of Wales, crashed out on Saturday. The other top positions in the inaugural Central European Rally remained as they were overnight, with Estonian Ott Tänak third in his Ford and former world champion Sébastien Ogier of France in a Toyota fourth. In tennis, Jannik Sinner of Italy defeated Russian Daniil Medvedev in an ATP 500 final for the second time this month, winning the Vienna Open 7-6, 4-6, 6-3 on Sunday. 3 weeks ago, Sinner had beaten Medvedev for the first time in 7 encounters to lift the China Open in Beijing, and he repeated defeat in Vienna in a thrilling match that lasted over 3 hours. Sinner had to save 2 set points in the first set before taking it in the tiebreak, but Medvedev hit back with 2 breaks of serve in the second set to square the match. In the decider, an epic fourth game with 13 deuces went the way of Sinner, breaking serve to lead 3-1. After a further break of serve each, Sinner clinched victory with his second match point to claim his 10th ATP singles title. Both players are in the draw for next week's Paris Masters, as both Sinner and Medvedev have already qualified for the ATP finals in Turin. Over in Switzerland, Felix Auger-Aliassime shrugged off a testing season to win his first ATP title of the year, defending his crown at the Swiss indoors Basel with a 7-6, 7-6 victory over Hubert Hurkacz. The 23-year-old has struggled with injury this season, making just one semi-final back in February, but found some familiar form in Switzerland to collect a confidence-boosting win. Auger-Aliassime used his serve to control the match, losing just 9 service points across the two sets. The Canadian will rise up to 29th in the world rankings after starting the week 53rd.
I'm definitely back. I mean, I let my racket talk, that's always been the motto of my career. I've had the conviction that I can be a top player since I'm a kid, but there was many doubts this year about my performances and why, and I'm happy that I was able to prove to everybody, that I still belong among the best players in the world, that I can play at this level. So I never doubted, but it's good to confirm it on the court.
WBC heavyweight world champion Tyson Fury beat former UFC fighter Francis Ngannou on a split decision in a non-title fight in Saudi Arabia yesterday that almost delivered one of boxing's biggest upsets. Fury, unbeaten holder of one of the sport's most prestigious belts, narrowly avoided a first defeat at the hands of a 37-year-old opponent who had never boxed professionally before but went through the full 10 rounds with some swagger. Ngannou dropped the Briton to the canvas in round 3 with a left hook, and although the 35-year-old self-styled Gypsy King was able to see out the round, he had no doubts about what he was up against. Fury said there was no rematch clause, but he would like to fight Ngannou again down the line. And after an undisputed title fight with Ukraine's IBO, WBO and WBA champion Alexander Usyk, the pair are set to meet in Riyadh at a date yet to be announced officially, but what both champions said will be 23rd December. Usyk, who was in Saudi Arabia to watch his future opponent, said he was ready. Ngannou vacated his heavyweight belt after a contract dispute with UFC and exited as a free agent in January. That ends our bulletin this afternoon. Wrapping up with a recap of our top story today. 10th Malaysia-Singapore Leaders Retreat kicks off today. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Amrun Efong, Malaysia Madani, tekad perpaduan penuhi harapan. Have a pleasant afternoon.